October, there were videos that were shared on Facebook of over 140 people being arrested, many more people being brutalized by police, themselves being unarmed, many stories of those being arrested and abused when they were in jails. And so John Floberg, a priest in the area who had served for 25 years at Standing Rock Reservation, put a call out to clergy from across the country saying, please show up, stand in solidarity with us. It was short notice. He expected only 100 or so could make it. Over 500 made it, 50 of those being Unitarian Universalist ministers, one of those being myself, and 4 others, my wife Jennifer, Elizabeth Arnett, and Deborah Fritts. This video will give you a brief sense of what that was like. What brought you to Standing Rock today?
What brought me to Standing Rock was the call for clergy to come, just as in a similar way that I went to Phoenix when there was the call around the whole business around migrant justice. So, and this is just part of our communal witness around the marginalization, the historic marginalization of Native peoples in America. And this is just one day, one step in a big, long struggle.
Thank you, Peter.
Down and wanted to meet this man because this man was still standing strong on his faith in the old traditional ways. So the elder gentleman greeted the Pope and he invited him to sit down and visit. And people around him came and gave him coffee and a bite to eat. And the Pope wanted to ask him what it is, what is the center of his belief. And he told him, well, my soul, I believe with my soul.
Well, I've heard him speak a few times. The rest is in a group. This is the first time I've said hi.
I still have my water.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and I'm here to talk about our trip to Standing Rock. And I'm going to tell you from my experience, I'm not good with facts. Facts I seem to want to bend to my own prejudices, and so I'm just going to leave the facts out and just tell you my experience. We were told, Sunday about it, and my heart said yes. There wasn't any question. Yes, I'm going. We met in the parking lot. I knew Joseph from seeing him at church and saying hi, but that was about it. And Deborah, and then Jennifer, his wife. And we all first said, let's pray. So we prayed, and we got in the van, and we got to know each other, and we spent the time together. We synchronized our bathroom breaks. It was all just going great. And we're bouncing along, and then we spend the night, and then the next morning we're bouncing along these beautiful rolling hills and grasses and blue skies, and just so magnificent. And we come to this huge river, and we go, my God, there's a river. It must be the Missouri. And it was the Missouri. We got out and took our picture. We were so glad to see it. We're going to be the protectors. That's why we're going on this trip. So we rode some more, and we see the sign that said we're entering the Sioux Nation. And then we go by the casino. And we stop, and we see some more clergy that have gathered there, eating lunch, and, you know, that's exciting, and we know it's happening, and we go about 10 more miles, and as we're driving along, we're kind of higher up. We cross a small river, and we're higher up, and we can look down and see the river plain that the large river has, you know, flattened. And here are the lodges and the teepees and the little one-man tents and the bigger tents and the smoke from some fires and lots of flags. It's just beautiful. And we know we're here, and we go up to the gate, and they say we can't go in. Not yet. And I guess we learned that the reason was there was an action that morning that was pretty dramatic, and people were hurt, and things were just hadn't quite calmed down. At least that's what I understood. But it wasn't too long. We got to drive in. We were told to put our tents anywhere that seemed the right place, you know, and then ask around if this is a good place. And we did. And then we go to orientation, and they tell us about what to expect, and that this is ceremony. We're not just at a concert or a camp out. We're in ceremony. It happened, I think, for us when we first gathered to pray. We started our ceremony. And here we were with the whole, I don't know, I'd say a couple thousand people, all in ceremony, all with a prayerful purpose. And that was what the orientation was about, that we're going to be nonviolent in our thoughts and our actions. We're going to be one with the earth and these people. You know, we're there to help the people. So then we eat and we go to bed, and it was freezing cold. I woke up and I got my water, and it was a little bit frozen. My legs were a little bit frozen, and I got up to find a fire to stand around and so there other people, so I could get one side warm while the other side got cold, and then I'd turn around and do it again. Finally, I went back to my little tent. I hear the bullhorn saying, "Get up! Get up! Everybody, get up!" So we rouse around, and I go to the sacred fire, and there's a women's ceremony that's going to happen. And so I fell in with the women that were going to walk to the smaller river, the Cannonball, that was meeting the Missouri just a short distance away. And we prayed, we smudged, we sang as we went down to the river. We offered our tobacco and our prayers and our hopes into the river. We stood with each other at the river. And then the day I went back to the sacred fire, and here the clergy had organized and had already taken off, and it was a process because each person got smudged as they left the sacred fire area. So I gather into that, and I go up. You could see the barricades. I wasn't totally denying the fact that there was barricades, there was big searchlights pouring down on the camp day and night. There was a helicopter that circled during the day. I didn't hear it at night. And so those things were present. But those were minor. They seem minor to me because we were all in a prayerful way. And I forgot to check to see where I started this, but I'll start finishing it, and it won't be the end because I'll have to leave out lots. But at the clergy action, the clergy spoke, many spoke, and then when it was over, we all made a huge circle. And they started going around the circle one at a time. And each person that came around said, "Peace be with you," in some form, but mostly the words, "Peace be with you." And they looked right into my eyes. I looked into their eyes. And it went on for an hour, face after face after face, saying, "Peace be with you." And sometimes we just have to break into a hug because we were just so overwhelmed with each other's love that we were sharing. That's what Standing Rock was to me. People are standing for all of us, and I know they're willing to die. I know they are. Thank you.
The question I have had is, how do I start? Do I start with the history of my people? How the Lakota story? I'm sorry, even writing this made me cry. How the Lakota story is also the story of the Cherokee and of all Native peoples in the fight for the lands we have occupied since time immemorial, and for the right to exist, the right to just be alive, to live in peace where our ancestors once walked before us. I know when people look at me, they do not see a Native person. In fact, I was just told last week, "You do not look Native." Well, I am, and I am proud of it. I'm proud to be a strong Cherokee woman, the product of a long line of strong Cherokee women. When I saw what was happening at Standing Rock, I felt it in my bones. I knew I would go, that it wasn't a matter of if, but a matter of when. That I had to be there to stand with my Lakota brothers and sisters. After Joseph called and invited me to go, it felt like an answer to a prayer, and I crumbled to the floor thanking the Creator, for I knew that He was the one who was sending me. I had one day to prepare. I didn't have a tent or a sleeping bag, but in the words of a wise friend, if the Creator wants you to go, He will provide. And He did. The trip was life-changing, and I still have a hard time putting it all into words, so I will sum it up for you with one word: love. Because even with the government blocking our phones, the police helicopters circling overhead all day and night, the pipeline company shining spotlights into the camp all night to intimidate us, listening to the stories of those having been sprayed with tear gas, and some having been shot with rubber bullets, while prayerfully protecting the water well unarmed, there was no anger, just sadness and determination in their voices and eyes, and there was love. At one time I broke down crying, and the Sacred Fire leader opened up his arms and said to me, "It's okay to cry." And he just held me while I cried. To paraphrase a Japanese man who was there, right now Standing Rock is the center of the world. And in that center is love. And love is how we have endured, love for our ancestors, and love for the next 7 generations. Wado.
My wife Jennifer wasn't able to be here this morning, so she made a video for all of you.
On Thursday, October 27th, I sat frozen in my chair at my temp job, unable to take my eyes off my iPhone. I was watching live footage on Facebook of unarmed people at Standing Rock being aggressively pushed back by police in full riot gear, like a scene out of a war movie. But this was no movie. As the situation escalated, police fired rubber bullets and pepper spray at an unarmed, non-violent, largely Native American group calling themselves water protectors, who were standing their ground to protect what remained of their sacred lands and water sources from the Dakota Access Pipeline. I felt terrified for the water protectors' safety. I felt outrage at the pipeline project. I felt helpless. All I could do was press share on Facebook. I didn't know what else to do. 5 days later, I was on my way to Standing Rock. When Joseph got the invitation to join the Interfaith Clergy Action, we knew we had to go. Sometimes as humans, we have to know who we're not before we can find out who we really are. I was not someone who could sit this one out. That had become clear. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew I must be there to greet it. It was even stronger than knowing. It was a call. I see now it was a call to connect my heart to the heart of Standing Rock. What I've always explored in my work as an actor and filmmaker and in my studies of natural medicine is how we are all interconnected. At Standing Rock, I experienced that firsthand. When I heard from people who underwent trauma and pain, I felt pain. When I joined in a round dance around the Camp Sacred Fire, stumbling in my steps, I looked up and saw others dancing and stumbling too. When we prayed in unison. When we shouted, "Mini Wachoni," or "Water is life," we shouted in one voice. When my heart broke, I felt the brokenness of all of our hearts there. That's what helps me in these dark days we are in, to know that my heart might break over and over, that all of our hearts might break, but we can choose to pick up the pieces and build one new beautiful heart, the heart of the world. The heart of the world beats steady and strong at Standing Rock.
My father drove me to the plains along the Little Bighorn River to show me Custer's last stand. We got out of the car and we walked to where the last of Custer's men were killed by the Lakota. To me, it just looked like a field, a beautiful field, but just a field. My father breathed in deeply. breathing in the air of the place, seeing something which I could not. As he exhaled, he looked at me and simply said, he thought he knew how the story would end. He was wrong. Custer had brute force on his side, and he believed this was enough. He represented the United States government, and the government had full confidence in Custer. It was only a matter of time before the strongest army in the world, the U.S. military, would defeat the Lakota people who roamed these plains. This was not what happened, however. Within a half hour, 210 of Custer's soldiers were killed. According to Lakota tradition, in the time it takes a hungry man to eat a meal, his whole company was gone in a half hour. No survivors. A Lakota man traveled to Washington, D.C. to communicate the news of defeat to the members of the U.S. government. He said, "We wiped them out." Immediately, laughter filled the room. They thought he was joking. They were in the middle of celebrating America's centennial in 1876, celebrating 100 years of being a country, of becoming the strongest military force in the world. They sent the Lakota man away. Later, after the champagne wore off from their celebration, they were shocked to discover he was telling the truth. They were defeated. Not everyone was shocked. Sitting Bull, one of the leaders of the Lakota, had a vision before meeting Custer. He had a vision of protecting the land, the religion and culture of his people. He had a vision where his people would be free to fully live their lives in peace. He saw in a vision the battle of Little Bighorn. He saw dust rising from the plains. As the dust settled, there were no men in blue uniforms upright, only his people. At America's centennial, they had forgotten about their humble beginnings as a country. They had forgotten that in 1776, the founders were a group of recent settlers, perceived as a ragtag group by the British. The British were not concerned with these outcasts. The British had the strongest military in the world. They knew they had the most brute force. Their brute force would be no match for these Americans. The British were confident in their victory. They thought they knew how the story would end. They were wrong. The founders of our government saw things differently at that time. They had a vision. They had a vision that they could practice their religion and culture in peace. They believed they had a right to be free from economic exploitation. They had a vision they could be free to fully live their lives. Right now, there is a $3.8 billion oil pipeline being built in North Dakota, desecrating sacred burial grounds and the sacred land of the Lakota. It threatens to pollute the Missouri River, which millions of people rely on for drinking water. The pipeline is financed by all major banks. It is being protected by militarized police who are beating, pepper spraying, and using water cannons to spray cold water on unarmed civilians in freezing temperatures. One woman is in the hospital with an injured arm, which may need to be amputated. And hundreds have been arrested, put in dog kennels, abused, and hurt by police as they stand on their sacred ground. The militarized police are protected by the governor, and they are supported by our federal government, given their silence and lack of intervention. Our incoming president is a major investor in this pipeline. They have brute force on their side. They seem certain of victory. They think they know how the story will end. The indigenous people who predate the birth of our nation see things differently. They have a vision. The Lakota people have a prophecy that they would need to confront a giant black snake. Today, the Lakota people have understood the black snake to be the oil pipeline, which threatens to snake through their land and pollute the water. Their vision of resistance is grounded in a few simple principles. One, we are all relatives. Native, non-native, animals, even police, military. We are all relatives. What we do to one, we do to all. Two, our greatest weapon against brutality is prayerful intention and peaceful nonviolence. For my atheist and agnostic brothers and sisters, let me interpret that for you. Prayer is literally living with kind intention. Prayer is not about talking to something you don't believe in. It's treating yourself and others kindly, intending to treat the earth and all living beings as your relative, as your family. It's a way of life. 3, everything we do is ceremony. This is another reminder to stay mindful of your thoughts and words and actions. Treat yourself in this time with great respect and honor. This vision has united Native American tribes from across the country, from Alaska to New York. This is the largest gathering of Native American tribes in U.S. history, and they are speaking in one voice of peaceful protest. They have gathered to protect the water and land from our habit of destruction. They have come to freely practice their religion and their culture in peace. They have gathered to resist economic exploitation. Sound familiar? Standing Rock is America. Right now, there is a vision of America being articulated in a time of great distress. In the video you saw earlier, you saw a Navy officer in uniform with a flag hanging upside down. This is not a sign of disrespect. It's called the flag in distress. The flag is flown upside down when there is great danger and lives are at stake. This is the time we are in. We are given the opportunity in this moment to make amends for the actions of our ancestors. That was part of the clergy call, part of my call. There was a ceremony where we repudiated the doctrine of discovery, a church doctrine which supported colonization giving governments permission to take land that they discovered without respect for the indigenous people that lived on that land. Many faiths have repudiated this doctrine, including our own. But we had never repudiated this doctrine publicly in front of Native peoples, in front of our military. John Floberg, the priest who called all clergy to Standing Rock, approached the militarized police defending the pipeline near the bridge. They saw him and shouted from a bullhorn, "Put your hands up! What do you want?" He said, "I want to talk to you." A man approached him with an M16 and said, "Speak." John said, "I'm here to tell you something. You are here because of a doctrine. We were wrong. My church ancestors were wrong." Later, we gathered with tribal elders and said to them directly, "We were wrong." We asked the elders what they wished to do with this doctrine. They consulted for a few minutes, and they decided unanimously they wished to burn it. So all the clergy gathered in a circle around the tribal elders, and we watched them burn it. It is time we burn a vision of America based on brute force. We must be willing to retire a limited vision of what the people of this country are capable of. We can buy into the narrative that the real power of this country is in Washington, D.C., or on Wall Street. We can render ourselves helpless in the face of injustice. The spirit of America is not in the White House. It's not on Wall Street. It's with the people. It's with the first peoples who have resisted genocide, broken treaties, and militarized police for hundreds of years. They are teaching us right now what it means to be a vital country with our spirit intact. They are asking us to stand with them in this historical moment, not just for them, but for all of us, for our whole nation. The Army Corps released a letter this last Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, demanding that Oceti Sakowin camp, the camp that we stayed in, be evacuated by December 5th. This is where thousands have gathered to resist in prayer along the Missouri River. If the camp is not empty on December 5th, they are willing to use brute force. They are scared, and they are trying to assert control. They think they know how the story will end. Mark my words, Standing Rock is only the beginning. The vision of Standing Rock predates our nation, and it cannot be killed by brute force. There are powerful movements that are happening in this country right now, and many more to come, and it's time we get ready to engage them with our full heart, our finances, and our energy. When we arrived at camp, we set up our tent next to teepees that were in the process of being built. A man told me, these tents, these are the 7 council tents of the Lakota. He then said casually, You know, the last white person to see these tents was Custer. We both smiled. Our offering is going to go directly to Sacred Stone Camp at Standing Rock to provide medical supplies, tents, clothing, food for all those on the front lines at Standing Rock. We ask, please, give generously. Thank you.
We are your church, and we are proud to be your church, or at least a church that's having a positive impact on your life. I am personally blessed to be your minister, or at least a minister who you're allowing to speak into your life. I hope you'll support our ministry and share your love beyond belief by texting LOVEBB to 41444 or go to our website. But you can just text LOVEBB to 41444 and make your gift. It's wonderful. Thank you. Be blessed and be a blessing.